From Bossier City, Louisiana, this is the Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back to the Grouch and the Brainstorm. My name is Mike, and I'm here today with some fellow Grouches and Brainstorms, and we're gonna have some good stuff.
Mostly Grouches.
Mostly Grouches, yeah. We got some good stuff going tonight, though. So I got Ben here. Say hi, Ben.
What's up?
I got Hayden here.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So I think the last time we met, it was us four, and we were doing Hayden's story. So, but tonight we're doing an episode. This is episode number 12. Mm-hmm. Episode number 12. And before I get to rolling on episode number 12, I want to talk a little bit about episode number 11. I got to make sure. Am I getting that right? Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm looking
that's
right
what you
now.
wrote on the board.
And for our listeners out there, I'm actually recording this video so that I can upload it to our YouTube channel that I've been working on for a while, just so everyone can see how the recording is done and where it's done and all the other great stuff that goes along with that. But, you know, I had someone message me about the spirituality the sober and in recovery topic that we had, episode ago, I believe it was a couple episodes. Mm-hmm. So Amy C. down in Lacombe, Louisiana, which member of the Mandeville group down there that I attended for a long time, you know, she sent me a message, and it says that her thought process goes along with this on that subject. Recovery is simply the willingness to continue to grow spiritually. If you're not doing that, maybe you're just sober.
That's really good.
That is. I like that. And you know, that goes off into the whole growing spiritually throughout your recovery in order to maintain recovery, in order to keep staying in recovery and not just be sober.
And I think the topic you want to talk about today ties in with that really well.
Yeah, that's why I went ahead and brought it up. That, and anybody that sends me a message, an email, a voicemail, we're going to discuss that at the very beginning of it so that it can be discussed between whoever's here, you know, on the cast. Sitting out tonight is Jill. She's in the ocean somewhere.
Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, somewhere like that.
Somewhere, Alabama.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. She's got the, flip-flop thing going on in the sand. And Jen's sitting out tonight. She's at work, so it's just us guys. Just us guys here tonight talking about recovery. And I'm going to give out the information again at the end of the podcast, but there is an email address. There is a cell phone that you can call, leave a voicemail. And also, if you want to look me up on we have an Instagram page, Grouch and the Brainstorm on Instagram, and then my name is Mike Walston Jr. You can look me up and send me a message as well. Anything you want to talk about. Tonight we're going to talk about inventory. Okay, now, I understand it ties in with the fourth step, and I'll probably read a little bit of stuff out of the book here in a minute, but this is one that's kind of near and dear to me because I came into the program several years ago, and this confused me. The inventory just confused me, guys. And why? I've been in retail since I was 15 years old. I'm 50. I've had 2 jobs, so multi-years in both. And we take inventory once a year at my current job. Matter of fact, I take inventory next Wednesday at my current job. It's annually. And then we take inventory at the one I was at before every 3 months. So 4 times a year, quarterly, we would take an inventory. So the inventory itself should not have confused me, but it did. I was just teetotally confused about inventory and what I was supposed to do. And if someone maybe not, I mean, it's hard to remember all the way back then, but if someone would have simplified just the inventory, just this is what we're doing. And the book actually does. The book does it so simply that I couldn't get it, right? And it tells us any business that doesn't take inventory is, bound to go broke. I'd imagine any human that doesn't take inventory spiritually may head in that direction as well. And a lot of that also leads to financially and morally and the whole gamut that spirituality covers. So I want to talk about the inventory, what it means to you. If you want to dive off into your 4th step, that is great. When we do actually talk about the 4th step on next week's episode, I want to dive off into the fact that when we look at the 4th step and we think about the 4th step, a lot of times all that is discussed is our resentment list and that dreaded 4th column, And Jane are that comes to some of the meetings that I go to here, she asked me, she said, when you do finally talk about it, tell them just to do it. Tell them just to do it. So that's exactly what I do. I want to simplify it down to the point of just an inventory and what an inventory means to us, and what it was like when we had to take our inventory. And then we'll dive off into so we're going to talk about the physical part of it. How about that? The actual stuff. And then we'll dive off into the spiritual side of the inventory later. And I'll say this one thing, and I'm going to go off. I'll let you guys start talking, but if I had to take an inventory of Matt, so much easier than taking an inventory of mine. I might not even be confused. I could probably list Matt's character defects.
We could swap, dude. I didn't even think about that. That'd be a lot easier for both of us.
Well, I could probably take
Probably
everybody's
wouldn't work,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, then I come up with your character defects.
That's right.
When I go off into those other steps, I have them removed, you know what I mean? Or I get to work on them anyway. So, Ben, what do you think about inventory, man?
I don't know. When we're talking about inventory, are we talking about the inventory we did on the 4-step, or like we talk about?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it in like an AA term. So, the inventory we did on a 4-step, or the inventory you still do on a 10-step.
Yeah, that's what I was really thinking about was my 10-step, and it's not as in depth as I would look at a 4-step inventory. It's just looking back on the day, making sure if I did something bad or mal or treated somebody the wrong way, I needed to atone for that, go back and make an amends. But also reminding myself of that if I did anything good, I did something good, but that I just made it through the day and I didn't drink. Like, that inventory list really doesn't have to have anything on there. Yeah, we're supposed to try and help another alcoholic and all these other things, but as long as I make it through the end of the day, I didn't hurt anybody, I didn't do anything crazy or off the wall, and didn't drink, it was a great day. I was in the
Well, let me ask you this: coming into here and starting in the program, and both you guys are over a year now from doing a 4-step to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's scary as it can be initially, because I know we were all there. That's the craziest thing ever, and most people balk when they get to 4, But now, taking your inventory over a year into it, I know I look at myself, I'm always going, wait, am I falling back? Like, now I want to do it, but I didn't want to do it at first. I mean, is it easier today for y'all?
It's leagues easier than it was the first time. The first time, that was the longest, hardest part of my 12-step
Panic attack.
first year.
Sure.
Yeah, it was sitting down, first off, actually thinking and about those things, all that stuff we have to go through on our inventory, and then getting it on paper took a lot longer than I thought it was going. Because going into it, I was like, the whole concept of everything is like, yeah, man, I just got to sit down, write everything on a piece of paper. And then as soon as I pulled out that sheet of paper, and the first time that pen went toward it, it's like that scene in Liar Liar where he's trying to write the pen is blue.
Right. Yeah.
And it just, it took me about a week to start writing the first sentence on that piece of
I went
paper.
way longer than that, dude.
So when you think about inventory, what do you think about?
My interactions with people, because that's where I've struggled mostly with my recovery. It's all based on my relationships with people.
Okay.
That's what led me to a lot of drinking and everything, was trying to change who I am so I could fit into everybody's life like I thought I needed to. Like I needed to do something so somebody could have me in their life.
People pleasing?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
So you kind of have a collection of thoughts on how you may have pleased people, or may have some of your actions may have been to win someone over.
Oh yeah, everything I did up until like 14 months ago was to please somebody. And I still feel like one of the main reasons I'm here on this planet is to help people, but now I've found a better way to do that that's not self-harming and doesn't lead me down path of self-harm.
So kind of like Amy said in her message to us, that you continue to grow.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Using an inventory, or that's part of it, using an inventory to continue to grow spiritually.
And I'm going to let Hayden tell his, but I think with 4 and the inventory, it's a really good start. But I think, now you guys are younger, but when I did mine, I was 38. I had a lot of water under the bridge, and I didn't get everything just down perfect, but I got the big ones. And even to this day, occasionally me and sponsor will, hey, you got this character defect. Well, let's work on that, and that's great. And I'm really open to listening to that today, because I know it's made me better, and I see the difference. I know how I feel. It's so much better. And so if I can identify that and work on it, man, that's awesome,
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be a little nerve wracking to look in the mirror, and really look in the mirror. So, but I was one of those too when I was in treatment. I've said this before. I read they had the 12 steps on the wall, and I read them all, and I was like, oh, I just skipped that part. I don't even really. I mean, I'm perfect. How could I have a character defect? I found out I did later on. But anyway, what about you, Hayden?
Man, so for the longest time, I'm just like Mike, I had no idea that an inventory of my life would benefit me in any way. I didn't understand what it was whenever I got into the program. And, for so many years, I was absolutely delusional. I mean, I could never see my part in any of my problems. And I truly needed someone else to show me how to go about this process. And today, my inventory is a bit different, because it's not so much, I don't have a lot of fear behind why I do it, because like you said, now that I've done it, I know that it works, and I want to keep doing what works for me. And as far as the spiritual nature of the inventory, it's like whenever I think about all of these little sayings that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like, if you want self-esteem, you have to do esteemable things. And well, now I know what to do whenever I'm feeling out of whack. I know how to look at myself, and that's something I've never been able to do. The inventory process for me today is exactly what the big book tells me to do whenever it says when we retire at night. And there's certain things that I add to that. It's like I have to make sure that I give my boss a good day's work. I have to make sure that, all of these living amends that I have to continuously work them. It's very easy for me to take a resentment back. There's certain people in my life that, they can get to me much quicker than anyone else. And I show them a lot less grace than anyone else on this planet. And that's something I absolutely have to keep in check, because that will remove any bit of peace and serenity that I have in my life. And I mean, it's really like 2 people that absolutely can get under my skin faster than anyone else. And, I just have to practice what the program teaches me: love and tolerance for people. And like I said, my inventory is exactly like it is out of the big book. I have to make sure that, I wasn't selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, or anything throughout the day. And whenever I had, and not only that, it's like, I don't do it solely at night. Sometimes these things need to be addressed whenever they happen. And, every once in a while, I have to take a step back from a situation, because if I've wronged someone and I'm embarrassed, then sometimes that translates into like this false anger towards that person.
Yeah.
And I have no nothing good to add to that situation at that point, and I just have to back away and make it right whenever I can. But today, it looks a lot different than it used to be. I know a bit more about myself, and I would like to continue learning. But yeah, man, I definitely, I was lost whenever I got here. I had no idea how to look in the mirror and honestly look at who I was and I had no vision of who I could be like in this life today. I mean, I had no vision of that at all. You know, I was sitting down with a sponsee the other day, and we were doing some step work, and after it was all said and done, I was sitting in my car for a few minutes, and I was like, man, there's no way that I would have ever imagined my life being the way that it is today. Mm-hmm. And I'm scared to death to lose what I got. So today I'm just going to continue to do those things. And, you know, it's also a lot of guidance from a sponsor, you know, a lot of going back to the step work that I've already done. You know, I know tonight's not necessarily on the fourth step, but I refer back to it frequently because whenever you know, I just did a fourth step. I don't know. It hasn't been very long. I haven't been sober very long, but you know, all of those things that were addressed at that time still are in my life today. Mm-hmm. It's just they're not running rampant through my life to the point to where I'm adding all of this bull crap all of the time. And you know, they're manageable, right? I never understood the concept of like, okay, we have a lot of bull crap in our life today. And once we stop adding bull crap at a rapid rate, we can start addressing the stuff that's already done. You know, like I've never thought in that way. I knew that I was hopeless and there was just nothing to be done about it. So, you know, screw it. Why not? Just absolutely, I was running rampant.
And, you know, I think what helped me too is I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I start sitting in the rooms. And I mean, yeah, I went to treatment, but it doesn't, you know, you're not really at a level of recovery of any level at that time. You know, people are just trying to get on their feet. But I got in the group, and then people were just so open about their defects and stuff. And I'm going, are y'all hearing this? I'm looking around like, did y'all hear what that guy just said? You know, and I realized it's cool. Everybody in here has issues. And I went, okay. And it kind of made it a little easier for me to go, okay, well, maybe I need to take a look at this. If this guy can do it, you know, and that was a big deal for me, just getting in there. And I will tell you a funny story right quick.
Let's hear it.
Early in recovery, this is a 4-step story. Early in recovery, not going to say the guy's name, no information. None of y'all know him, but y'all do know his sponsor. Me and him were tight. We were both early in recovery. We both worked together at the same company. He's doing his 4-step. I just got through with mine, okay? Sponsors up his ass about, you need to give me that list. He's sweating it out. He rolls up to me one day. Hey, man, I need to talk to you. I was like, what's up? He's like, you done your 4-step? I said, yeah, I've done 4 and 5. What'd you do it on, a piece of paper? This is a true story. I went, yeah. And he goes, can I look at it? And I went, no. And he goes, I just want to look at it, man, because he's on my boat about doing this, and I want to just see what I'm supposed to be putting down. And I was like, dude, what if I wrote I robbed a bank? Are you just gonna copy my paper like we're in school, you know? Oh, he was so mad at me. I'm like, dude, you can't just copy my paper, you know? So
should have let him, man.
I should have, and made a false list of things, you know, and really bad stuff.
He's still around?
Oh yeah,
Still sober?
Yeah, he got through it.
Well,
man.
good thing you didn't let him cheat.
Yeah, he's my partner. We'll have him on here one day, and I may bring that up and just put him on the spot with it because he'll get a kick out of it. But yeah, I didn't let him cheat.
I don't think the first time you told me that story, you said rob a bank.
Well, I'm cleaning it up.
Bit more graphic.
It involved that fourth column with some farm animals. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah. But anyway, that's exactly what I told him. And but yeah, that's lovely. You know,
it's probably best you didn't mention his name.
Yeah, that's why I left that part out. So, but. He may be on here one day.
You got everyone Googling AA.farm animal.
Well, this guy, you know, if you knew him, it wouldn't be far-fetched to find out that's on his list. So, but
okay. Oh man, you know, the inventory process is I think the most important part of it, and this is just, you know, for me, I get these guys. People ask me to work with them, you know, and do the steps with them, and we'll get into a room because I always, you know, make sure it's just me and them, and there's really no phone, we have our phones, but generally I like them to stay off of their phones, right? And we get in there and we start reading the big book. We start on page. I usually start with the doctor's opinion. Sometimes we'll do the forwards, but mostly we start with the doctor's opinion and we read through, and we read the first 44 pages or so, and we talk about, are you an alcoholic, right? This is what the book has said. These are some great examples. Do you think you're an alcoholic? Most of the time they say yeah. If they don't say no, it's up to them. It's their recovery. But we get to a few pages down the line, we get to 2. We get to 2, and we talk about, are you now willing, do you now, or are you willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? They say yes or no or whatever it is, and, and then we get to 3, and we say the 3rd step prayer together, and we talk about our commitment to do the steps so that we can get closer to God and learn how to turn our power, will, and life over to God. But then we immediately, during that 3rd step meeting, I outline the program of the 4th step of the inventory as it says in the big book, and we got our 3 columns. I said 3. That's the way I do it with my guys, but we got our 3 columns, and then there's other inventories that need to be taken, right? There's a fear inventory. The big book also calls one of them, a sex inventory. It's really a conduct inventory and a relationship inventory, but there's different things that have to be done. And that's where it slows down drastically. We've been doing a step a week, or we've been doing a step every 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden we get to this, and boom, we've hit a brick wall. And I think the most important part of this is where I was going with all that is do it. Take an inventory, right? Just take it. Take that inventory. Spend that time. If procrastination is one of your character defects, you're in for a treat.
So, side question: all y'all sitting here, tell the truth. When you got your 4th step with your sponsor till 5, you're done with that and you're moving on. Total amount of elapsed time. Did you procrastinate?
For me,
I mean, just ballpark.
Go ahead, Ben. So for me, I would say total elapsed time 2 months from the time that I asked him to be my sponsor until we sat knee to knee and
completed 5th. So yes. 2 months, but that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
I got you. Yeah,
and
I got you smoked on that deal. I drug it out, man.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I know you did.
I had a lot of crap.
So for me, exactly how Mike just explained, going through the steps, that's how my first sponsor was getting me through the steps. We sat down, he qualified me, if you will, seeing if I was an alcoholic in the first place. We did steps 1, 2, and 3 just like that, and then immediately after we did the 3rd step prayer, we sat down. He told me to bring a notebook with me whenever we sat down, and he outlined me doing the 4th step, and that's exactly what I did with my guys as well, just because that's the way it was shown to me. And I'll tell you what, if it hadn't been done in that way, I knew how absolutely miserable I was starting out. I was in a place of absolute despair whenever I got in the program, and the only time that I ever had like the pink cloud or whatever you want to call it, pink pony.
Y'all weren't in that meeting last night.
Oh, y'all missed it. But anyway,
there was a guy. He said the pink pony, whatever y'all talking about. I don't know.
But
the pink pony.
So, but the only time I got to saddle up on that pink pony was whenever I first got into sober living, and I felt safe there. I hadn't felt safe anywhere in such a long time. I was incarcerated for 2 years. And then whenever I got out, I immediately went straight into the depths of my addiction. And, I got in the program very quickly after that. But, I hadn't felt safe in a long time. I was cool for about 2 days. And if he hadn't got me through the steps as fast as he did, I don't know if I would have made it, man.
Yeah, I like that, though. I like that.
I think just 4 and 5, that part with me was probably 3+ months.
Yeah.
1 step, 2 steps, basically.
I'm going to say a month.
I
for
drug
me.
I drug
It,
I drug
yeah,
it out.
it took me, I think, about a month, and the fifth step was like done within that hour that we meet. But
Yeah, I mean, I finally was told,
the-
whatever you have written down, you just bring it, and we're gonna go through it.
I think my second fourth step took longer than my first fourth step, to be quite honest with you, and it was a decade later. So
How many times have you been through the steps?
just
Yourself?
with me and a sponsor
Yeah.
twice.
Okay,
Twice in 12 years. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not ever going to suggest that. You know, that's completely dependent on someone's serenity. I had my original sponsor had passed away, and took everything I told him to the grave. That in itself gives you a little bit of kind of loss of accountability. Me anyway. I can't speak for anybody else. But then my second sponsor comes along, and immediately, he picked me up. Really, basically, hey, I know your sponsor died. Here's what you need to do. And I grabbed onto him. We never did the steps together. We never sat down and did the steps. And then I moved. I made a geographical change, and I went to New Orleans. And when I moved down to New Orleans, there was really very little sponsor. I was kind of sponsoring myself for about 6 months. And I said, I need to get another sponsor. And when I got this third sponsor, the first thing he said was, you need to go back to the steps. We need to take you back to the steps. It's been, too long. And I was like, okay, well, let's go back to the steps. And that's whenever I went back through the steps with him. And we met once a week, usually on Friday evening at the clubhouse, and worked back through the steps. But and then I moved back up here from New Orleans, and of course picked up another sponsor closer to me, and we haven't really worked through the steps. The way we work together is he more or less, you describe a situation or tell him the truth, try to be as honest with him as you can. And he says, what step are we really looking at here? Are we looking at step 6? Are we looking at step 4? Do you need to write something down? You know the answer already.
That's kind of how Bobby and I do, and have done, and it's more like on a as needed basis. But I would still like to go through them again. Been kind of thinking on that.
Yep.
With 5 years, I think it's not going to
think
hurt
you need
anything.
to.
Thanks, man.
I mean, just a little personal look into your life. The last few months that I've seen you going through a bunch of shit, I think it'd be good for you.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's been a lot happening in the last 5 years since I've done, or 4.5 years since I've done them. And,
Do you have more than 3 people upset with you
today,
In this room.
When was the last time you
in
had
this room, I don't even think I could carry the boat in the room right now. No, I mean, yeah. Oh, definitely, man.
my rule has always been, if I have more than 3 people mad at me, then it's probably time for me to sit down and start writing something.
I don't know if anybody's,
There's some character
There's a
defect.
couple.
There's been times where, my ex-wife, my daughter, and then some other friend all mad at me or upset with me about something. And I've just been around too long to know that many people can't be upset with you unless there's some
that's
blaring
very
character
wise.
defect
Yeah.
that's causing that, So I look at it like that. And same with work. If there are more than 3 people, even though that, I do supervise, and I supervise quite a lot of people, but if there are more than 3 people upset with me, I take a personal inventory. I sit down and say,
See, yeah.
what am I doing wrong?
I have to do that too. I had a guy yesterday. It's real hot. My business we're in, we work outside, and I got a lot of guys that, and they're grumbling right now. It's hot, and they're bad attitudes, and they're overworked, and we don't have enough guys. And one of them came in. He's like, I just can't do this all summer. And so I sat there with him, and I was like, hey, man, it was 2 or 3 of them when we sat in the office yesterday afternoon. And I said, look, dude, you got to, and I didn't go AA on them or any of that stuff, but I said, you got to every day reboot, man. When you get up in the morning, whatever was there the day before, just let it go. It's done. And just concentrate on that day. You're looking at the whole summer, and you're inventing, all the stuff we talk about. So he came in today. When he came in, he goes, hey, man, I'm just going to tell you, I actually tried that this morning. I feel better, man. I really do. Like, that helped me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you have to, man, or you'll drive yourself crazy, So, but yeah, it's weird being work-wise and applying that. But I have to. I have to apply character defects,
Yeah.
So,
And character defects, I mean, that the people that I'm around the most are going to see them more than me.
Have you ever made amends with a employee?
Oh, absolutely.
I have to.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. You
Yep.
know, I mean, I didn't tell them, hey, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I really need to make amends with you. What I did is call somebody in the office and say, I was wrong.
Yeah, yep.
And I
Been
remember
there.
one particular situation where I didn't do anything at all. And that employee came back later and said, you didn't do anything. I was expecting for you to do something. And I said, if I would have said anything or done anything at that time, I may not have been able to take it back.
Mm-hmm.
And now my head is cleared and we can discuss what we were discussing. So, in that situation, I wasn't taking anybody's inventory. I was allowing that pause to take effect.
To let the moment pass.
Yeah, before something was said. But, you can lose a lifelong friend like that. Just because today they are employed under me doesn't mean that tomorrow they may not be in a room of AA needing help. And my obligation to help people still stands regardless of my feelings for them. Principles before personality.
Absolutely, man.
Isn't that one of our traditions?
It's and that's that's what's funny is you deal with stuff like that with a lot of employee type stuff and try to live the way that we live. And it's funny how many of them, that particular guy, the first guy that I ever had to do that with was a few years ago. He works with me now, but he worked with me at another company. And I went up to him and I said, man, I was out of line, dude. I popped off. I was out of line. And he just sat there looking at me. And I was like, that's my bad. I shouldn't have done it. And I explained the situation. And I said, it won't happen again, And he came up to me the next day and he goes, I've never, ever, ever had a boss come up to me and say, I'm sorry, that's my bad. He's like, that was the coolest thing ever. I didn't know what to say. I said, I was in the wrong, man, period. And we're still tight, but it makes you feel good when you can do that too and go, hey man, a little humility. We all.
Well, I'm glad you bring up humility because even though our 7th step, basically, that whole month of July, which we're in now, by the way, we talk about humility and it comes up all the time. And we try to look at it and analyze it and talk about it until around the 20th where we're just sick of talking about it and somebody actually picks a damn topic in a meeting. But humility is probably a lot, for me anyway, is in that inventory is where I started to gain humility. Because it's easy for me to take an inventory of who's wronged me, And by inventory, I mean just a list of who's wronged me, right? And this is who's done this, and this is done this is what they did, this is how it affects me, and blah, blah, blah. But whenever I have to actually take an inventory, I have to look at me, what was my part in it? And there's where the humility for me comes in, So, and there's a little bit of humility in every step, but I think that humility really shows itself. It showed itself to me. And the thing about humility is the more I practice it, the less I feel I need it. And situations that used to cause me grief for weeks, if not months or years, can be taken away in hours or minutes. Just because of the simple fact I can say, I was wrong. I was wrong, And that's when we get into the 4th step. That's where we get into, okay, I was wrong. Now, what do I do about it? Mm-hmm. Because nothing's happening just because I said I was wrong. I'm still wrong. Sucks. Now I got to do something about it.
Exactly.
More humility.
Yep.
It's like if you made a drink and you put like 2 parts humility, now you have to add humility as a mixer. And then, splash it with a little humility.
That's right. Well, and it, and I mean, I think that it goes back to what I said earlier too, though, when you come into an AA group and everybody out there, man, I strongly encourage you, wherever you're at, find a group, find your people. And, I was very lucky. I didn't have to look very far, and God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I walked in the right place, and I've been there ever since. But, it's examples that I've seen, and not just with my sponsor, but with a lot of the people in those rooms, and showing that, and they act on it, and I go, ooh, man, like I was thinking something different here. My reaction would not have been humility in this situation. And even today, man, I'm around just different people, and something happens and I go, ooh, I kind of get that little burn like, yeah, you need to tighten up, dude. You shouldn't act like that, you know, or think that way or whatever. But, yeah, I'm pretty grateful to.
So Hayden, when let's say you take an inventory, like on paper, you know, that takes me to whole nother subject, but the big book does talk about doing this on paper. You know, we put pen to paper. You know, it doesn't say iPad to, you know, Apple Pencil. It doesn't say key it in on a spreadsheet. It says we put pen to paper, okay? When you do that, what do you do with that data?
So if there are amends to be made, then I have to do that. I have to put the action behind listing the inventory in the first place, because without it, it means nothing. I mean, it just does. I mean, it is great that I'm able to take a look at myself and see what behaviors I'm displaying nowadays. But if I don't do anything with the information that I'm gathering, then it just stays on the piece of paper. You know, and every once in a while, I'll still need guidance with certain things. You know, I'll have to get a second opinion because my thinking is still messed up. And another thing that I've been very guilty of that I don't think we've talked about today is, you know, in my reflection of what I've done, I will beat the crap out of myself to the point to where every little thing that I do is under the microscope. And then it makes me a nervous wreck whenever I'm dealing with people, especially early on. That's really not the case today, but one of the things that really just hit home for me, one of my buddies said one time, he was like, man, you got to stop taking yourself and the world so serious. Because it got to the point to where, man, I'd stop talking to people because I didn't want to do the wrong thing, or you know, I would take one thing that this is just a story. Whenever I first got sober, I worked at Sonic, and I was a car hop there, and I was making like $9 an hour, struggling bad.
Did you wear the rollerblades?
Leave me alone.
Did you have your hoochie daddy shorts on?
I did have my
bro.
hoochie daddy on. I'll tell you what, the old ladies tipped me really well. But
yeah.
So I'm
living the dream.
I'm busting tail to work.
We're definitely going to get some calls on it.
Yeah.
So I hop on my Huffy and I'm hitting it. You know, I woke up late that morning, and whenever I get to work, I get in the bathroom and everything after I'd already started my shift. And I get in the bathroom and I call my sponsor, and I'm in a tizzy, dude. I'm just losing my mind. And I was like, dude, my day is screwed. I didn't even pray this morning. And he just like, he was real quiet, and he was like, are you done? And I was like, yeah. He was like, man, you know, I know a little bit about you at this point. And he was like, if the worst thing you got going on today is you didn't pray before you got to work, he was like, you're doing all right. And he hung up on me. And, you know, it's like, that's where my mind goes a lot of the time, or not necessarily today, but starting out. So, you know, and the big book addresses this. It tells us not to, I'm not very good at quoting things out of the big book, but it says not to go into morbid reflection of your day.
That's exactly what it says.
Right. And so, I mean, that's something that was really important for me to grasp early on. And like I said, I mean, I read Upon Awakening and When We Retire at Night so many times, but it just took that one phrase. My buddies just said, stop taking yourself and the world so seriously. And, you know, it freed me up a little bit. And that just goes along with how this program works. You know, I had no idea how to inventory myself, and I still need help from my fellows every once in a while.
And like me, I was real good at forgiving other people and just letting stuff go, but then I beat myself to death.
Right.
And my sponsor was like, why do you treat yourself different than why are you beating yourself to death? You don't do that when other people, you know? And I was like, oh, I don't know. So
Hayden said something really important just then. Get some help. Get some help doing this fourth step, man. We don't have to do anything in this program alone.
That's it.
There is somebody for something, mainly our sponsor. You know, obviously the suggested route would be, you know, get with a sponsor on it. But, yeah, have some help.
Isn't the first word in the first step we?
It is. It is, we. So, And I think that all of them, though, we could do, together as a group. I don't know how anybody else works with their sponsees, but I do it, the way Dale worked with me all them years ago is, sit down at a table with a big book. With us, it was just a big book. Pen, paper, possibly a highlighter. But we just read when we're supposed to read. And we pray when it says to pray, and we write when it says to write. Right. And that's it, especially for the initial one. Now if I'm going back through the steps with someone who's already done them, we may stop and talk a little bit about our experience and stuff like that. And that's what big book studies are really good for. And stuff like this, that's what big book studies are for. If you get in there and you just happen to be on this part of the big book, man, if you got a new guy you're working with or a lady or, anybody you're working with, get them up there during this part, get some feedback from around the room. But, again, it's self-sufficiency. I wanted to figure it out on my own, and I couldn't, man. I was watching YouTube videos. It's right here in the big book. Like, it's literally so simple.
I mean, I was so jacked up. I was going home when I got out of treatment, and I know everybody's like, oh, I was watching recovery stuff. I was watching, is AA a cult? That's what I was watching every night because I was like, something's wrong. All I was doing was looking for a reason not to be there, and be like, this doesn't work. I swear to you. And people are like, oh, yeah, they make you pray in there, and I'm like, well, that's not that bad. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, well, they don't take your money or anything. Like, you don't have to give them money or drink any weird Kool-Aid or wear weird outfits. And I was like, okay, it's not a cult. I guess Matt, I got to keep going.
You're still weird. Because I know you like still fall asleep to like Nazi documentaries. And
yeah, Hitler. Yep.
Hitler.
I was waiting around until I could figure out which position we made money at. I was like, I'm just trying to figure that out. So
none of them.
Hey, if you think that you're going to make money in a position, just keep coming back. But so something that Jane said about just do it. I'm going to brag on one of my sponsees real quick, and this is kind of funny. So we sat down, we did steps 1, 2, and 3. He had to go, so I told him I'd line him out on the 4th step whenever we saw each other, and he calls me the next day, and he's like, hey, man, early in the morning, but he knew I was working. He was like, hey, man, you want to go get breakfast real quick? I was like, sure. So we get some breakfast, and I line him out on this 4th step, and by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he messages me and he's like, all right, I'm done.
Wow.
And, hold on.
World record.
How long was this?
This was from like 9 a.m. to, it's just a few hours.
5
right?
hours. Something.
Right. And anyway, so he's like, I'm done. I'm like, are you sure? And then he sends me this video of all of these. He did it absolutely like it says out of the book. And it's just page after page.
Wow.
After page. And I was like, dang, dude.
He really did.
Yeah, he's like, I want to be well now.
Wow.
You know what?
That's pretty
That's
awesome.
actually impressive.
Yeah, that is impressive.
It was pretty cool. We did that 5th step. And
I have the opposite. So my sponsees, when I give them the 4 list, I never hear from them again.
I've had,
That's what.
And you hear that a lot in AA. It's 1, 2, 3 gone, 1, 2, 3 gone, and man, that is where we lose a lot of momentum. You knock out step 1, and people are like, all right, 11 more. You knock out step 2, okay, 10 more. You knock out step 3, okay, but you have to stop to start doing the work. And we just lose so much momentum. And I think that's where just do it. Just do that inventory. This sponsee you were working with, or guy you were working with, he can move on. He can feel that relief as fast as he wants to. This is their program.
You leave something off of there, you can always go back. You can go back, man, and go, hey, I didn't think of. I had some of that stuff, and but it was like, let's get this over with. Let's get the majority of this over with and move down the road a little bit. And
it says a thorough inventory. It doesn't say a perfect inventory.
Yeah,
you don't have to get it right the first time. You just got to get everything that your freshly sober mind can get out of your head and onto that piece of paper.
Right.
And you have to remember now, we're talking about me. I was talking about stuff from before I even was really a drinker.
Oh yeah.
So we're talking about going back.
I think Bobby told me, he said, you're 38 years old, so you should have 2 for each column for every year you've been alive. So think about that a minute.
You got sober at 38?
Yep.
I got sober at 38.
Yeah, I know. My man over there. That's a good age to do it, you know.
Well, if you
Unless I did it at 20, would have been better. But
if you look around, a lot of folks got sober in that narrow around 37, 38. If I'm not mistaken, Randy T, I think, was about 37, 38.
okay.
You know, Phil F was 29.
I thought I was 28.
He don't never know how old he is, dude. Every time I ask that dude, he does not know.
How old were you?
And me and him have the
I think
same
I'm 30.
belly button birthday, and
Yeah.
he still don't know how old he is.
Kind of hard to take inventory when you
Yeah.
don't have a timeline.
Ben's like, I'm in the 20s.
I just go as far back as I can remember. That's just how
And
yeah,
you know,
but I'm-
started.
Yeah.
something that Ben was saying, it is really important. And it's not a perfect inventory. And, you know, the way that the big book puts it, after we've done our fifth step, we need to review the process that we've been through already. Mm-hmm. And I just tell my guys, while they're reviewing these things, if there is an idea that pops up into your head, just write it down, dude. Mm-hmm. Because the thing that pops up into your head and then you decide you don't want to talk about, you know, I know how that is for me. It's like the things that I want to hold on to are the ones that affect me the most. And, you know, so, I mean, I walk them straight through the big book exactly the way that the big book says to work the steps. And,
Can't go wrong like that, Aiden.
right. And so another thing that I've really been blessed with, the guys that I've worked with for the most part have no AA experience at all. So I'll try and get them on their fourth step before they go to a meeting where someone talks about being
Everybody's like,
scared
"Oh,
of
yeah,
their
the
fourth
fourth
step, you know?
Yeah, I think it kind of makes them a little pre-nervous, you know, deal there. But
Big book studies, speaker meetings, all those things. You get a lot of input about a 4-step, or, you know, and of course we're just talking about the inventory, you know, and what to do an inventory, you know, and the instructions are in the big book. You know, you sit down, you make a list of resentments, you talk about what they did to actually cause the resentment, how it affects you. Then you go back and you look at your part on a separate page, and then there's the fear inventory. Okay, so we haven't even talked about that on this podcast, but there's a fear inventory, and there may not even be a resentment associated with said fear, you know, but there's an inventory of fear. And we go through and we list those on paper, and then we decide what to do about it, because self has let us down. And maybe fear happens to be one of those things in that, you know. And fear comes up a lot in a 4-step and in the 5th step and in AA period, you know, fear being the evil and corroding thread that, you know, goes through the fabric of our life. But that's the inventory process is actually not as complicated as everyone seems to think it is. It's just
we make it in our minds, you know. So
yeah, we do.
and you know
we do.
that sponsor relationship, and going back to not a perfect inventory, that's where having a sponsor and having, you know, calling your sponsor and doing those things, that's where you build that relationship with them, you know. So when I call him, he pretty much knows what's going on, you know. Now, I don't talk to mine every single day. 5 years in, I don't talk every day. I see him in a meeting a lot, but I mean, as far as checking in the morning, I don't do that as much anymore. But we talk, and so when I call him with something and I'm kind of having a moment, I don't have to have this big preamble story of what's going on in my life. He's known it from the get-go, and that's awesome, you know. Whereas most people, it would be this, well, what happened was this, and then this, and I don't have to go through all that, you know. And he's also aware of my character defect, so he starts going, well, you know, this is what's going on here, and we go from there. But yeah, don't do this alone. Get a sponsor, wear them out.
Right. And, you know, that accountability is so important. And for me, it doesn't just come from my sponsor. I actually spoke to we were just texting a little while ago before I got here. You know, Thursdays are typically the days that I go to the treatment center. And I just texted him to make sure somebody was going to be up there, because I wasn't. Well, that's one meeting I don't miss. You know, I don't miss a meeting really any day of the week. But that's one that I'm absolutely for sure going to. And, he's like, well, what's going on? Like, is everything all right?
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, man, I'm going to do the podcast with the guys. But that is where the accountability is really important.
Sure.
And, I would like to get a bit more involved with my home group that I have today, because I know how beneficial that is for my recovery. And that's something that I absolutely need to do, because starting out, I had a home group that I was very, very involved with. And, I chaired meetings all the time. And that's definitely something that I need to be doing with you guys.
What is your home group? Is it 5:30?
5:30, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's always stuff to do with 5:30 group.
Show up at the business meeting.
Well, I tell you what, I have, it has been my home group the entire 12 years, 5:30 group, even though I was in Mandeville and did some service stuff down in the Mandeville group down there. The 5:30 group has always been my home group, and I've always been actively involved in my home group, and and then actively involved in my other home group in Mandeville. But that there's something about that particular home group. You have a core of people. And, I remember one time I had been coming around every single day, I want to say for like 4 years. And I missed a week whenever I went off and got married. And I came back. And so besides that 1 week, I had been there every single day. And there was a old timer in there at the time. He's passed on now. But he was in there and he was talking about the core group, and he goes, "Yeah, there's about 13 people in here that been around, and they're what makes this group, right?" And he starts naming them, and he didn't name me, and I was pissed. I was thinking, well, I've been coming here every day for 4 years, and I am not a member. I'm not a core member, But then I had to think back on the names he was naming, and some of these guys been coming around for 25, 30 years, And still going to that group now every day, just about every day. I'm with you on that too. Go to a meeting every day. Why not? You drink every day. You drug every day. Go to a meeting every day. But even looking back on it, all these years into it, I probably still am not a core member of that group. But they're a core member of me.
Sure.
They're a large part of my life, and that is all that should matter. It's not even about me and how important I am. It's about how important they are to me. And whenever I have those, I have drinking dreams still. All these years later, I still have drinking dreams. And whenever I do, somebody from in there is always in there. Somebody. They're always in that dream. And I'm trying to hide it from them, And subconsciously, there's a little accountability while I'm trying to sleep, the few hours a day I get. So, man, that having a home group, having that accountability, and then there's something about once you have that, you can pull somebody into the corner and say, "Hey, look, I need to talk to you, man. I'm having a rough day." Or, "Hey, let me talk to you about this. This is something I did." And it goes both ways. Someone's going to do the same exact thing for you.
And you know what's funny? You talk about a core group, but in Alcoholics Anonymous, you can have a day or 100 years, and you're on equal footing pretty much. I mean, you show up and want to help, we go, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to be in there and you got a problem with drinking, come on in. You're part of the group.
Nobody even knows how long you've been there. Like,
yeah, I'm like, "Hey, dude, where are you from?" He's like, "I don't know. I just got here." I'm like, "Oh, my bad."
Nobody even knows who makes the coffee. Right? It doesn't matter. You can be the first day you've ever made coffee in your life, and no one's going to say nothing.
I'm going to tell a funny story. No, not funny, but it was sweet, and it just kind of. So I was one of these people showed up at a meeting one day, and Mike, our host over here, he's got a real nice car, right? He's got a nice car, and I was leaving a meeting one night, and it was an intergroup. That's what it was, an intergroup, and some guy was on the front porch, young guy, never seen him. I don't know where he came from. Probably one of these groups that they bust him over there because it was a bunch of those guys. And he was talking out there, and Mike walked out while we were all standing there, and I was kind of in the group, and he said hi to everybody and went and got in his car, and he drove off, and he drove past everybody. And that dude just said something like, "Well, I guess it's easy to be that way when you drive a Porsche." That's what the dude said. And I looked over at him, and I said, "Hey, the guy that drove that Porsche," I said, "do you know what he was doing earlier before you got here to eat that food?" And he goes, "Nuh-uh." And I said, "He took all the trash out. All the garbage, he was taking it out to the dumpster when I got here." And the guy just kind of looked at me, and I just walked off. And I was like, "You know what? It is what it is, brother. But we just learn not to, humility. That's it just kills me, But yeah, I'll never forget that guy saying that. And
So I actually have something similar with Mike's car. So whenever I started coming to the 5:30 group, I was thoroughly convinced.
you thought we were going to give you a Porsche on your 1-year anniversary, didn't you?
No, but I thought that was the
Birthday.
person making the money in the meeting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So-
Hayden's all about the money, dude.
But seriously, so
There's none here.
Apparently, he thinks it's still a racket.
Yeah. Hayden's
I'm
looking
still
out.
waiting on that meeting. But no, I was like, man, one of those old guys drives that car for sure, And then I see Mike get in the car one day, and I was like, well, dang, I guess it's not one of the old guys. And then he says his sobriety birthday, and I'm like, dang, he had his last drink before I had my first. So it's like,
Yeah. It's just man, I don't know. It's a beautiful thing, man. And like I said, I see humility on stuff, and Mike's a great example of that, man. And all the stuff that he has going on in his whole deal service, and like he never says a word about it. I've heard other stuff that he don't even know I know about that he helps people with, and he keeps it low key. And so yeah, it kind of hit my redneck button a little bit when I heard that guy say that. And I was nice, but I looked at him directly and I said, man, you need to pay attention a little more before you just make comments like that, And I don't know. I sometimes I wonder when you see the humility and you go, God blesses that kind of stuff, and that's good. So, but,
And somebody's got to take the trash out.
right.
Yeah.
yeah,
And somebody's got to show up and open the cabinets, and somebody's got to
Make
do
coffee
stuff
and-
like this so that people who don't have a clear understanding of what we do maybe have a little clearer understanding. We get to pass this thing on, and we get to do that.
sure.
This is an honor for me to be a member of. Boy, it wasn't on day one. I'm gonna tell you now. I didn't care what you drove. Don't come talk to me. And now something snapped. Maybe it was during that inventory we've been talking about, or maybe it was the steps after that. But something snapped. And to be honest with you, 4 and 5 is really where I became a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's where it went from me talking about y'all to talking about we, us. This is what we do. Before be like somebody would show up at an intergroup. That's a good example. Somebody would show up in an intergroup and they'd be like, what are they doing? Oh, they have this thing every week, every month. And then they meet in the front room. And after I doing these steps, or these 2 particular steps I'm talking about, people would show up and say, hey, what are they doing? Oh, we have a meeting up here in the front room. Come on. It gets a little congested, but you can get up, if you want to. You don't have to stay in there. And we have a speaker, and it becomes we, just like Ben talked about in that first step, And that comes from that inventory. I'm no longer less than, because, regardless of the vehicle, regardless of any status outside the rooms, I walked in that room less than everyone else in my head. I was not equal. I would dare make coffee because you wouldn't like it. And if you didn't like the coffee I made, you wouldn't let me make it again. Or I wouldn't even clean a table because I probably wouldn't do it right. I felt like everyone was looking at me going, he thinks this and he thinks that, like they're trying to read my mind. And I didn't realize everybody in there is just trying to stay sober like I was doing the day I walked in, and they've got something. And I need to probably get it.
Another good example too is when we have a birthday and we have cake in there and it's a big celebration, and you watch the people that get up to serve cake and to pick up empty plates. And my sponsor, when I first came in there, he did it all the time. And he would walk by me and hand me a piece of cake, and he'd go, you're supposed to be doing this. And he'd just keep going. And I'm like, doing what? Eating this cake? Because I'm about to eat it, And then it dawned on me, oh, no, I should be. And so you watch that, and it's guys that they take it serious, and they want to get up and serve other people just to be able to do that, and it keeps them straight. And
After I started coming more frequent, and I got my sponsor Cal, and it'd be a birthday meeting. And
the Cal tell you get your ass up.
No, he didn't. He never said a word. I would happen to glance at him, and people would be getting up, and he'd just go.
Yeah.
I'd stand up. And I'd go. It's like, because I was fully expecting if I didn't, he was going to stand up and say, "Get your ass up."
Yeah,
go
he will.
fucking
He will. He will.
Randy T, who has never sponsored me, right? But he did indirectly sponsor me, because where we sit in our meeting is where we sat all those years ago. And when I would come in, and my sponsor was always late. He was a pharmacist for the state of Louisiana. So I think he might have got off at 5:30 and he got there at 5:45. He was late every day. And so I would show up around 5:10 and me and Randy T would just talk every day. So Randy has always been an indirect sponsor, but he's never gave me a bad suggestion. And I mean, I remember him, like, meeting would be over and we'd drop hands and he'd say, that guy right there, go talk to him. Go talk to him. I'm like, man, what do I have to offer? You know, I don't have anything to offer this guy, but just go talk to him. He needs somebody to talk to him. And the fact you don't have anything to offer might be what he's looking for in somebody. Instead of trying to gang save him or whatever it is, just he might need someone just to talk to. Go tell him. Tell him you've been sober a week. Tell him you've been sober a month. Tell him you've been sober 6 months.
A lot of times that carries a lot more weight with a new person than I've been sober a decade, and they go, I don't know this dude. I can't. I did. You know,
it's hard for me to relate to someone who's been sober a decade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I always feel like I'm getting a 30-day chip tomorrow. Like every day I wake up, I'm like, I might get it today. You know, I don't know. But,
so a couple of things that Mike was talking about, man, whenever I got in the program, I was 25 years old and I just fell off around a bunch of people that were just a bit older than me. I may have shared this in the last podcast, but the moment that I felt a part of, you know, I was so fearful about taking that inventory and sharing it with a man that I'd actually grown to respect after seeing that he actually does this program. There's nothing in it for him, and you know, he's really doing what they're talking about. But the moment I was done sharing everything in my fifth step, he was like, "Man, me too."
Yeah.
You know, and that was so important for me. He was like, "Nothing you just said was okay, but it's going to be," and you know, that was so big for me. And then something else that Mike was talking about. One thing that I tell my guys straight out the gate is, we need you. You know, we need you in the program for Alcoholics Anonymous, because you never know who you're going to be able to reach. There was this guy that he's close to my age, and if you've heard my story, I lost a friend right before I got sober, and he had a very similar thing happen, and he was sitting there talking to a couple of the guys that I was close with back in West Monroe, and they called me and they said, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy." And that's what it's all about. It's like, man, you just never know who you're going to be able to reach. I never imagined that the things in my past would be such great gifts for me to share with other men, and that's the case for everybody in this program. You never know who is going to relate to you just right and receive what you have to offer just right. I mean, it's really, it's amazing.
Yep.
I can picture I can picture Matt and Bobby, and Matt telling Bobby, "Man, I really don't catch as many fish as I say." Bobby says, "Me too."
He's never said that, and he never will. Okay. And my sponsor, I love him to death, but you know, I mean, I've admitted this publicly on this recording. He wears me out pretty good, but he does have built-in advantages too, and he knows that. I've got some issues with fishing.
Well, I mean, does he have a fish call or something?
No, I mean,
Aquaman?
he's just, you know, he's got some advantages. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to put him on blast, but he knows what they are.
Is he electrocuting these fish?
He's, you know, I don't know. He needs to work on it a little more. Though.
Is it all that Don Juan's he eats before he goes out there?
He says that's his sponsor. His fishing sponsor is, you know, sponsors his bass fishing. But
well, you know, that's a good point. If you have a fishing sponsor, it's kind of like having a guide. They can take you where the information is. They can take you where the fish are. If you have a sponsor, they can take you where the steps are and help you get through them so that you can find recovery instead of just sobriety. And, you know, of course, it may work a little different in fishing because...
Hey, I'll tell you all this, and I know I pick on Bobby a lot, and I love him to death. Like, literally, like he's like a dad to me, you know. And I do. He always like, "You're so snide about stuff." I'm like, I'm just picking on you, man. But the last year, I've had two things with him. One, he told me something and asked me to keep a secret, that it's out there now, so it's okay. But it was top secret. And we got to share a moment on something that was big news for him. And I had to hold on to that for a long time, and it was killing me because I was excited for him. And it was a big life moment. And he chose to tell me that before everybody knew. And we were fishing that day, and he's like, I'm just going to tell you this. And he told me, and I was just like, oh yeah, and he's like, you can't say nothing, and I'm like, oh, but, and then we had a situation come up, and he actually asked me, what would I do? And I was like, huh? Like, you don't ever ask me anything about the way I do stuff. And I sat and thought about it, and I was like, I had the exact same situation. The shoes were on the opposite foot. And I told him, I repeated back to him what he told me to do. And he sat there real quiet, and he goes, I was just seeing I'm finally starting to rub off on you after 5 years. And I was like, yeah,
whenever you've been someone's temporary sponsor for 5 years,
I will probably at my funeral, he'll say he's still temporary, but that's all right. Whatever he calls it, I'll take it. So,
well, guys, it's about time to wrap this up. Chris C down at the club, he said I didn't use these buttons enough. So that's his applause right there for bringing a suggestion to the table. And we got Amy talking about spiritual growth and remaining spiritually growing in order to have recovery. We have Jane saying, just do the 4-step, right? Just do the 4-step. And or do that inventory anyway. Next time we're going to dive off into the 4-step and the columns and the different inventories that we do, and we're going to discuss everything except for details, because of course a lot of the stuff is personal. GandBBosier@gmail.com is our email address, and we would love to hear from anyone who can send us an email, and would love to give feedback on the air if you'll let us. And the telephone number that you can leave a voicemail at is area code 985-377-4816. That phone will not be answered. It's strictly a voicemail. I can hook that phone to my recording device and play your voicemail on the air, and we can all discuss it. We're not going to talk about it or make fun of it in any way, but I would love to have that have somebody call and leave a voicemail. I was telling the guys earlier before the meeting, we are now in 5 countries. We are being listened to by people in 5 different countries, and one of which just recently is Taiwan. We have the United Kingdom, we have Australia, we have Denmark, and we have the United States. So that is pretty cool. That's pretty cool to have that. Our total listens, we are up to 1,189 listens total. And that number grows by about 100, 150 a week. And those are the audience out there that we really do appreciate. Please share the podcast with anyone you can. Guys, I appreciate you being on the show. Matt's got
one thing I do want to add with all that announcement stuff. So we talk about the Koala Club a lot on here. Our area has great groups all over this whole North Louisiana area. If some of y'all are listening from other groups, you want to come on here, get in contact with us. We would love to have anybody that's recovery related that wants to come on and talk or do whatever, man. Please contact us. So
thank you. I like that. And had a little technical difficulty during the meeting. I don't know or during this podcast. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but I'll get that lined out and fixed up. Probably will not edit it out because I'm in a hurry to get this thing on to Spotify. So from Bossier City, Louisiana, this is the Grouch and the Brainstorm.